It's February 1st, 2024. Hi there. Welcome to episode 308 of Rook. In the last 24 hours, we saw the end of a major bastion of Iranian culture and creativity in recent times. This is an ode to the Manoto years. I'm Jian and Pegah. Hello to you from Toronto. Salam Dostan Aziz. Durud bar shama. So, Manoto was an international free-to-air Persian language TV channel launched in 2010, founded by Kayvan and Marjan Abbasi. It was based in London, and its entertaining programs included documentaries, films, news, and reality TV. Yesterday was its final day in existence. Now, you know all of this, especially the part about the network closing its doors, if you've been a regular follower of Manoto, where tributes abounded. You wouldn't know about this by only watching or listening to any other major Persian media where there's been pretty much no mention of it. Media competition knows no bounds, it seems, even when announcing the end of some television dreams. And in the Western English press, nothing, crickets. So let's do it here and make it very clear. The impact of Manoto was profound. The final days elicited tears, and this is an ode to the Manoto years. Of course, we have to issue some disclaimers. No, not everything Manoto produced in 13 years was excellent or perfect. And yes, of course, the network had a distinct ideological bent. Some of its documentaries could veer from historiography into hagiography, but maybe we could temporarily put aside the very Persian predilection for tearing things down within our ranks and instead explore 4 reasons among many that we owe Manoto a debt of thanks. An ode to the Manoto years. Number 1, Manoto should be applauded for making vital and entertaining programming for as long as it did. Trying to run a major television network with strong content, top production values is hard enough anywhere in the world in the 21st century multi-platform, multimedia marketplace, but a major Persian network that you cannot monetize with the majority of your audience because they're behind an iron wall inside the Islamic Republic, near impossible. Not to mention the long-standing paradox that Iranians love arts and culture but aren't always conditioned to financially support it. That Manoto lasted as long as it did and had a huge impact cannot be minimized. Number 2, Manoto created culture and was culture for Iranians inside Iran and across the diaspora. Emerging out of a media wasteland when it came to the Persian market, Manoto quickly played a pioneering role in showing the world and Iranians themselves a different, younger, creative, happier, more diverse reflection than what was to be found anywhere else, and particularly coming out of the image and propaganda of the Islamic Republic regime. To be fair, Manoto often got credited in some quarters for showing a different historical perspective from the mullahs, but it was in the cultural realm where its outreach was incredibly influential, from Gugush Academy to Befarmoid Sham to countless musicals, Nowruz specials, arts and culture programs. Manoto showed a different, innovative, vibrant, and vital Iran. That surely will be missed. Number 3, not too long ago, a TV legacy with modern production values and world-class entertainment content did not exist in the Iranian market. Manoto had to pretty much create it. And over the years, Manoto became a training ground for young Iranian talent in the TV production and performance spheres. It was like the schooling system and the big stage all rolled into one. Anyone who ever visited the Manoto studios would observe how the staff were encouraged to become multifaceted, multi-talented humans who could jump from being newsreaders to appearing in an original musical, or researchers to costume makers. Manoto created a warm family for many of its employees, and if that all sounds like hyperbole, go check the social media feeds of their staff in recent weeks, or the tears on that final day yesterday. That kind of collective spirit is surely to be applauded. Finally, number 4, Manoto had the integrity to go out pretty much on top. There was no overstaying a welcome in this case, kind of like Seinfeld ending its number 1 reign on top rather than stick around and fade to a whimper. Manoto didn't choose to cut back their programming and become a skeleton of itself or try to stay on air with half the resources. To the end, the content was strong, accessible, and what the long-cultivated, adoring Manoto audience wanted. They didn't wait to decline and then shut the doors. You know, there's a video of Keyvan Abbasi announcing to all of his staff back in November that they were going to need to shutter the network. You can feel the shock and heaviness in the room, but Keyvan takes a sage approach, saying everything eventually comes to an end and new, exciting things can only grow when others expire. Look, there's no question Keyvan and Marjan Abbasi and all those talented humans who've been working so hard at Manoto for years will start new, exciting, successful, and maybe even further pioneering ventures. For now, though, there comes a time for a high five when credit is due. Manoto TV, this one's for you. Coming up, a new edition of Rook, including a feature interview with the dynamic visual artist Danoon, Nehdaran, joining me from New York. Plus, first up, a roundtable with Pegah and Nikahang Kowsar, where we'll discuss everything from Manoto to the UN's visit to Iran and the latest staggering figures on air pollution. This is Rook, episode 308, an ode to the Manoto years. Studio. Smart Pegah is here in the Rook studio. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay, but I was telling you earlier, I've got this, I think it's a nasal or like a sinus thing, which leads my ears to be plugged, so I can't hear anything.
That's so weird. I mentioned my sister
What?
was having...
Sorry. Yeah, no, I mean,
Turn
it's
the
not that
mic up?
bad. It's not that bad, but it's pretty bad. Yeah.
Did you go to a doctor or
I
get
keep
it
trying
checked
to
out?
open them like when you've been on a plane.
Yeah.
And you go, and like, yeah. No, I didn't. I talked to my doctor. He doesn't.
And?
Like what? Do
It'll
people
solve
go to
itself.
doctors still? I think maybe my doctor never wants to see me. He's just like,
Do you have like the telehealth thing where you go on like Zoom?
No, but he did call me, and then he was just like, yeah, he always just says, give it a couple weeks and tell me if like he's just giving up on me. He's like, just so let me know in a couple weeks, and I'm like, but I can't hear what. Smart Pegah is here, and also joining us from Washington, D.C. this week for our roundtable for the top here, a distinguished Iranian Canadian cartoonist, journalist, and blogger. He's been deeply involved in exposing environmental issues and discussing democracy in Iran for years. Hello, Nikahang Kowsar. Nice to have you back.
Hi, Mr. Giancomeshi. How are you doing?
Mr. Nikahang Kowsar. I'm okay, and we're going to talk about Manoto in a moment. I just did that opening essay about it, and I want to talk about that as part of the roundtable. How are you? How is Washington?
Washington sucks, so...
Excellent answer.
I was not expecting that. Okay.
Omnibus answer. Like, is that... the city doesn't suck. You mean the culture of the political...
Politics and all the brouhaha and everything else, yeah.
It's kind of a nice...
I love the city.
It's a nice place. Good people, yeah.
Clean.
Cleanish.
And they haven't stolen my bikes, unlike Toronto, that I lost, I think, 6.
You're lucky if it's just
you
your
lost
bikes.
what? 6 bikes?
Yes.
No, that's...
In Toronto, Oakville, Mississauga, yep.
Well, what were you carrying in these bikes? What was it? Why did you?
What
Why
kind
would
of
6
bikes?
people?
The bikes were supposed to carry me, but...
Well, you're lucky it was just your bikes. Now it's cars.
It's a bike stealing epidemic. I've never heard. Like, I mean, I guess bikes get stolen in Toronto, but 6 bikes. I mean,
yes,
I almost said 8.
From 2003 to 2011.
Right.
Wow.
Did it occur to you after the 5th one that had been stolen to maybe get a lock or something?
Actually, I had 2 locks on each one of those bikes, so that's not the problem. The problem is that the bikes weren't strong enough. I think the locksmith was somehow a relative of the thief, so I don't know.
All right. I should mention Danoon, Nehdaran, the visual artist, the painter, joining us from New York City in a little while, in about 20 minutes from now. I love what he does. He does a lot of portraiture. Well, do you know him, Nick? Do you know Dana?
No, I'd love to see his work.
His work is great. You can see it online. You can see it at his Instagram, but even better is his studio. He actually gets people to pose for him, sometimes
nice.
famous Iranians, but sometimes he finds somebody on the streets of New York and he does a portrait.
Wow.
And these portraits are really, he's got a definitive style. And he did this really interesting series of portraits, some of them self-portraits about being Jewish. He's a Jewish Iranian a few years ago as well. I think it was called Esther's Children. So he's a really interesting guy, and looking forward to having Nehdaran join us in just a bit. I should mention next Wednesday, is our inaugural Rook Live at Theater Aurora. February 7th, Maziar Falahi, Shiva Nagar, Banafshe Tahirian. Special performances by Babak Amini. Captain Reza will be there. Pegah will be there. Wine and cheese reception. Limited tickets now. I just asked Savvy Roham. He says there's a handful of tickets left. I think it's pretty much, it'll probably be sold out by tomorrow. It's Thursday today, February 1st. So if you still want to come, go to Eventbrite, type in Rook Live, or just go to our Instagram, and the link in the bio will lead you to tickets for Rook Live. Nick, you got to be part of the next Rook Live. People want to see you in person, man.
I'll do my best. I'll do it.
Even though you're shrinking.
Nobody wants to see me, so because
even
let's forget that. But I'd love to be there.
You know, if you come if we do the next one anywhere in the Greater Toronto area, bring your bike to the, bring a bike to the event. And
Which one? My brother has brought his own bike to force me to actually use it and get out of the house, but I'm too lazy. I'm from Shiraz.
How's that? But you're cultural, you see. On the other hand,
I could say that.
How's the biking in Washington? Have you had a bike stolen?
It's really good. No. I haven't had any of my bikes stolen. So we have two bikes in the vicinity of this place. But the fact is, I haven't heard any of my friends lose their bikes to lovely thieves, but I don't know.
It's a bit of a shame, really, because I would hope it would be a continuing trend, and then you could do, a cartoon series or a book about it or something. How I Lost All My Bicycles.
Yeah, and then I'll change my name to Nikahang from Nikahang.
Nikahang. All right, Nikahang and Pegah. Let's get to our roundtable. Donna, Nehdaran joining us in just a little bit. So, I did this, the opening ode. I call it an ode to the Manoto years. I think I made myself pretty clear that I think, whatever one's position on the particular programming of Manoto over the years is, I think this is a profound loss. I didn't even believe it in the beginning, and I still think Kayvon and Marjan, they're such industrious people. They're entrepreneurs after all. And Kayvon Abbasi, Manoto isn't the first TV network that he started. He was involved in other TV networks before, Bebin TV, Azadi TV in LA and stuff. So I think, they're going to come back. They're going to do something more. They're going to see something maybe even bigger and better, whatever. But I do think this is a loss on the landscape. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say on the day after the final program of Manoto. For now, Pegah, your thoughts?
I was actually really sad and really taken aback by the response from Iranians all over the world. I knew that there would be this profound impact of Manoto closing their doors because they really have been a large part of the majority of Iranians' lives for the last 13 years. But, to see videos of people in tears, to see videos of their own staff in tears, to read the commentary on Twitter and Instagram and things like that, it really solidified the fact that Manoto has had such a big impact. Personally, I'm sad too because I obviously over the last 13 years, their programming, they've been a big part of, life at home for me, especially during the COVID years when I was back home with my parents and sitting down and watching their program. And the thing that I'm really sad about actually is the fact that now we don't have anyone really out there in terms of a TV station to pass on and teach those traditions and keep those, they like Manoto used to do the Nowruz special or the Yanda special and things like that. And who are we going to rely on for that?
Well,
Iranian state TV? Definitely not.
Well, no, there are other Persian networks, but they don't necessarily do the kind of entertaining cultural programming that Manoto had become known for. That's where the gap is,
exactly.
Which is what I was trying to say in that essay, and it's quite a significant one. When you say a loss for all of the Iranian diaspora. I would put a little asterisk on
most,
that because,
let's
or
be fair.
most even, because as I mentioned in the essay, it almost feels like a really big cult band going off the road, like saying, hey, we're not going to make any more records, where the fans of the band are devastated. And then for people who listen to other kinds of music are just not so much on the radio. It's interesting, like I was saying in the essay there, Nick, that I did this with purpose to go and see if I could find any coverage of this on Iran International or BBC or anyone talking about, and of course it was almost complete silence from I guess the media competition, which I thought was a bit pathetic, really. It's like, this is a major cultural news moment. You would think that they would be big enough to cover it, but what do you make of that, the silence from other parts of the Persian media quarters?
No, actually, there was an interview with one of Manoto's editors on BBC Persian.
Okay.
And I think I saw something related to Manoto on Iran International
Okay.
about.
We couldn't find
So
anything, but that's good to know.
no, because I saw that video, and through that video, I noticed that Keyvan Abbasi had spoken about how he started the whole thing, and it was a three-part, you can say, uh, documentary, if you will, that Keyvan talked about his past when he was in Iran, why he had to leave, and then
Well, that was a documentary that they put out, that Manoto put
yeah,
out.
I learned about it through that
I see.
BBC. So that's why I know that BBC uh, had news about it. But the fact is, what's important is Keyvan Abbasi did a great job by training a lot of people who had nothing to do with media. And some of those are now working for other mainstream media outlets as professionals.
Yep. Yep.
So that's one thing. Two, he was able to reach out to many people from different backgrounds in Iran and tell them another side of the story that actually many of them were not aware of about Iran before the revolution. And at one point, I think Manoto was on the top of the hill or whatever you want to call it, on the top of the mountain, um, 2018, 2019, in a way. But gradually it lost the competition, and some of the members of Manoto became too bitter towards mainly Iran International, because Iran International was hiring people and they were paying more. And Manoto had lots of people working there, lots of employees, and didn't want to raise the financial bar for so many of them. So that was one thing. Two, they became too ideological, especially from, let's say, after Mahsa's death.
Yeah, they were sort of all in at that point. Then we know
Yeah,
where the
they became so ideological, and they gave a lot of space to people who were ultra nationalists, if you will. And some of them sounded like fascists, some of those individuals. And so the sad thing for me, I actually stopped watching Manoto years ago. I just used to watch the Farmer Chom. Let's have dinner. But the thing is, they have done a tremendous job and on different sides, making good documentaries, making good reports. Also, their own style, spitting image that they had using
the puppets.
rise
Yeah.
puppets. So that was great. And I believe what Keyvan has done will remain in the minds of so many. But I don't think their last year was their successful year, both political and
But can I just
financial.
can I just say that the when the uprising happened, it was, I mean, it was a difficult moment for all Persian media because it was kind of, nobody wanted to talk about anything else, obviously. So it was a hard pivot. But I would say for Iran International and BBC Persian, for example, it was very much, it sort of played almost into their hands because they do 24/7 news anyway. That's what they're there for. So they were sort of prepped and primed and ready for this kind of an incident. Whereas I felt like for Manoto, whilst they did a great job of sort of transforming into something that was covering the uprising, that was involved in it in an activistic way, as you say, they became quite ideological as well. But they were doing the people on the street videos that they would air. Farshad had that show where they would take people would send in videos, and Manoto would put it for the world to see and the people in Iran to see, etc., which provided a very important resource. I thought they just simply, how do you go from a 24/7 culture entertainment network to completely not being able to do that kind of coverage, at least in the early months? And I think that was probably very, very difficult for Manoto, as well as they kind of tried to deal with that situation, Nick.
They didn't look. They could have hired a number of very good journalists who were available, and some people who had worked for either BBC Persian or Radio Farda in the past, and used their knowledge and used their skills. These people have trained many journalists through the years, and I mean those editors or journalists who were available, and they could have hired them. They didn't want to do that because that's not Kayvan's style to actually hire professionals. It's very hard for him to work with pros. That's one thing. Two, if they had a ready team for this occasion, they could have been much more successful in the news business. But they lost the battle they lost the competition, especially to Iran International. And the other thing is that their news hour was, in a way, managed by somebody who was too ideological, so pro monarchy that she doesn't even respect any other thing. So an ultranationalist that considers anyone working with other media something like a traitor. So
yeah.
that's the hard thing for me because if you're running a news organization inside a bigger entertainment organization, becoming ideological turns you into a propaganda machine.
But the part that
that's what Kayvan intended to.
The part that I would take issue with, though, is that, well, they should have hired a bunch of top level news people. I mean, there are economic considerations here. You can't overnight, as you know, completely transform a network and then turn Manoto into a news only network or something like that. I mean, the fact that Manoto is closed down is again evidence, and my position is it's not a surprise it's closed down. It's amazing that they lasted as long as they did. Good for them. That it speaks to their industriousness. But I don't think that was a realistic thing, and they're up against a network that has, to a certain extent, unlimited funds in Iran International, and BBC, of course, is taxpayer funded, et cetera. So it's a tough game out there.
I'm not saying that they would have actually had a 24/7 news network. No, they could have had, let's say, even 2 hours instead of 1 hour of news on a daily basis. But if they could have stayed relevant and had even 2 really good editors over there to work with these people and train their staff, their news staff over there, it could have been much better. So when they hire somebody who has studied art and has not been a journalist to become the editor-in-chief of the newsroom, that's a problem.
Pegah?
I think I agree to a certain extent, but I think despite the fact that, they didn't pivot in the most professional sense over the course of, what happened in the last year and a bit, and despite not having, professional journalists and things like that, I think the fact was they were never a news station the way that, Iran International, for example, was, and I don't think that was ever their intent. But despite all those things, they lasted quite a long time even after that, and we see the impact that they've had. We see that, a lot of Iranians, I won't say most, but a lot of Iranians are really saddened by the fact that they're closing their doors. So I agree that maybe, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the things that they presented and some of the people on the channel, but it doesn't take away from the fact that they did an excellent job over the course of 13 years as a media company.
Yeah, if you watch those the documentaries, the Manoto documentaries about Manoto,
Right.
which actually are quite well done. It's basically a long interview with Kayvon Abbasi with a bunch of B-roll footage. But he says, their intent was to do lifestyle entertainment. They were filling that niche back to where we started with this conversation that couldn't be found in other places. And even when they were adapting shows that existed, like Beframaid Sham is a show that's been done in many other languages and many other ways, they take that and put for Iranians in Iran, that was brand new, and that was revolutionary, in fact, and so those kind of things mattered. Yes, go ahead.
And I was going to say, even for Iranians outside of Iran, I mean, for somebody like me, let's say, I've grown up here, I've seen shows like that. I've seen, American Idol and I don't know, Wherever's Got Talent and all of these things. But to be able to see Iranians kind of taking part in a show like that was, I think, very different than what any of the other Iranian media had done over the course of all these years, all of those channels in California
and a stroke of genius
whatnot.
To start with Gugush Academy. So you have the big name, and you're kind of starting off with something that is a big deal. Do you think? How do you think? Just because you are an observer of media, as we can tell, Nick, how do you think Manoto no longer being there affects the information flow for Iranians around the world now?
Look, they had a lot of audiences, not only on satellite, on their satellite TV channel, but also on social media. A number of those individuals will remain on social media, they will remain active, but through time, I think you could see some changes. And let me tell you, I actually worked as a commentator for Manoto in 2018 and part of 2019.
Oh.
So, and I wrote
the period that you just called the peak, I think, was of programming.
I was lucky. I was lucky because they were actually, Purya Zerati called me and said that we want to have environmental news on a weekly basis. And this was new because other news organizations weren't paying that much attention. And to me, environment is a sign. It's I can say if an organization pays attention to the environmental situation, it want to act responsibly. So that's why I really respected them. They produced a number of shows on Iran's water situation. That was really important. So I commend them for that, and they did a wonderful job. What I know through my connections over there, I went there a couple of times. I traveled to London and visited their offices. What I noticed is that the youngsters over there were very enthusiastic, and they could have actually worked their backsides off to do the best they could do to even satisfy the Iranian audiences and give what the Iranian audiences need. Even if they hadn't worked in the news business, they would have learned the right way to serve the public. That service thing that I'm talking about is a great thing that I saw among those individuals. One thing that I think we miss over here, the financial part, when Kayvon in the documentary says that venture capitalists actually paid for the money, I can say nobody is going to buy it. So out of the three-part documentary, that thing is going to stick out, and because no venture capitalist is going to pay you money to lose that money and spend it and not give anything back.
This is at the very beginning of Manoto, after Bebin. Is that what you're talking about?
After Bebin TV, it's for after Bebin TV. Then when Kayvon is asked where did he get the money, he talks about, let's say, talking to venture capitalists. And look, when you go there and compare the operations of Manoto TV with BBC Persian, and you hear that BBC Persian gets, I don't know, would it be 10 to 15 million pounds a year? So you can see that Manoto has to spend a little bit more. So through the 13 years, you can value, you can have an assessment that they have spent lots of money.
Well, I mean, he says in that doc, and I think I believe him. It's always been tough
Yeah.
making a go of it, and I would say, other than those that are funded by a state, literally,
Yeah.
it's a hard go in Persian media. I mean, staying alive, we know it on our own little level here with Rook. It's really not easy, and I don't know. I don't know what the whole cloak and dagger thing is with why the funding from Manoto has always been such this big secret. I mean, I would assume that because there's an ideological bent, it would make sense that the funding is related to that somehow. But I disagree with you that I don't think it's that shocking that venture capitalists would be interested, especially at that time. He had a great idea. It was like, there's a viable market. There's, satellite TV was still, and there was no Iran International either, right? So there was like, let's get in the marketplace, let's dominate, let's turn something. So I actually could see investors at that point going, wow, these guys, and there's traction coming out of the things Kayvon had done before. That wasn't that shocking to me. Where the funding comes from has always been this thing. And you mentioned Manoto, everybody has to ask that question. And I don't know why they weren't just more clear about that to avoid all the question asking. But that is for an interview with them, which hopefully we'll get to do very, very soon. I would love to.
One thing before I pass the torch to Pegah. Look, members of Manoto used to attack other or news organizations for getting, let's say, tax money or money from different organizations. So it's fair to be accountable for that reason. And the other thing is that those years, I think Farsi One was getting money from the United States. And of course, through Fox News, they had this wonderful news channel, entertainment and everything. And I think Manoto did a much better job, although they had less and less money compared to Farsi One, I assume. And that's why I think Kayvon will be always known as a genius, somebody who didn't go to college, somebody who used his knowledge of entertainment and also television to make such a wonderful TV channel.
And by the way, when you say that you looked at BBC Persian and then you looked at Manoto and you thought they must be spending more money, part of the reason he had those young people there was because they couldn't afford to bring in the six-figure salary professionals necessarily. So it was, let's bring in young people and teach them and bring them along, which of course is it's not the greatest for those who are not getting paid as much, but to hear the staff themselves, like I was saying to Pegah before the show, and I mentioned it in the essay there, but I've been actually warmly surprised by the devotion of much of his staff. People in tears. I mean, frankly, Nick, you could shut down two or three TV networks, either in the Persian marketplace or not, and not have the staff be that emotional. So they did cultivate this kind of family there. And maybe it was part of the mission that people believe in the ideology of the place or something like that. I don't know. But that part of it, I was like, wow, that's to be applauded in any workplace, that people would be that emotional about things ending, besides the fact that they might have to give up their jobs.
And also, you mentioned cultivate. I wanted to see, does cultivate have to do anything with cults? Because one thing that I saw is that unfortunately in their last year they empowered this ultra-nationalist cult, and that's one of the things that they will be also remembered for.
All right. Listen, I know, Nick, you have to go. You can't stay forever. So let me work through a couple of items here. First of all, this UN Deputy High Commissioner visit to Iran. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it has been in the news, and there's been, it seems like a bizarre kind of happening and decision. So Pegah, very quickly give us what it's about, and then give us your thought.
Yeah, so February 3rd to February 5th, Nada Al Nashif, who's the UN Deputy High Commissioner, is supposed to take a trip to Iran, actually. And the intent behind the trip is that she's supposed to talk to the regime about the status of women and girls and to talk about the death penalty. I mean, that sentence in and of itself, the irony, I mean, if you can't even recognize the irony there, I don't know what to say. But there's been a call amongst the Iranian diaspora to basically ask her to not go, to
Right.
put a pause on this trip, to, perhaps think a little bit more about the timing, things like that. Now, to be fair, this trip has been in the works for about 6 or 7 months. So this didn't happen, overnight. We've talked about it actually, I think a couple of weeks ago we brought it up. But there really has been an emphasis on the fact that this really is not the time for her to do this because of course, the executions that we've seen take place.
And what's the UN response to that?
Well, the UN, there's no response from the UN. There's no response from her either. But there's a lot of questions about why there hasn't been and why there is still such a push for her to go. The reality is that a lot of Iranians, I believe, think that this is going to be used as a propaganda tool by the Islamic regime, because they're going to say, look, we're engaging with the UN. Look, we're cooperating in all
Right.
of these things. And the reality is that we all know that the Islamic Republic doesn't cooperate with anyone, frankly. And really, in light of the executions, in light of what's taken place over the past year and a bit, this is really going to be detrimental to the progress that we've been trying to make in terms of showing the Islamic Republic for what they are.
All right.
And I just want to point out one more thing. The fact that she's also a female going to Iran, there's a lot of questions around that in and of itself. Is she going to wear a hijab when she goes there? Is she going to talk about what has happened over the last year and a bit? So there's a lot of controversy surrounding her trip and whether or not she's going to go.
Nick, quickly on this one.
One thing, yeah, it's the regime will most certainly use it as a propaganda tool to actually validate its own claims that it's not violating any rights, and they will try to prove that Nargis Mohammadi is a criminal or whatever, and we couldn't let her get out of the country for this and that. And it's somehow the Iranian regime is very smart in taking advantage of these situations. So that's why I think I signed the petition asking her not to go. I have a side in this, but I think the UN hasn't been very smart in response to Iran's games, the Islamic regime's games, if you will.
Let me get to a third topic here before we let you guys go, and before we get to Nehdaran, who's joining us from New York in just a bit. Nick, we've had you on a couple of times. Actually, you just wrote a piece about this last week about water in Iran. We've had you on about that. We've had Kaveh Madani here and others. What we haven't talked about as much, and certainly it doesn't preclude us speaking about water now or in the future, et cetera, but we haven't talked as much about air pollution. And this has been something that's been brought up to me a lot, especially in the last a couple of years. You guys should do an episode on this. And sometimes it feels like it's this kind of anecdotal. Oh, my parents in Shiraz said that in Mashhad said that the weather was really bad today and they couldn't go outside. The airplane. You kind of go, well, they got that problem in Los Angeles too. What's the big deal? But I was trying to do a dive into some of the stats, and the latest stats I could see around air pollution and deaths from air pollution in Iran are pretty staggering. The ones I found, I mean, you might, Nick, have something more up to date. I have a chart that only goes to 2019, but shows that the deaths in Iran from air pollution went from about 30,000 in the 90s to 45,000 in 2019, including 1,000 kids a year under the age of 5 dying in Iran from air pollution. And this was 2019. I can only assume in 5 years things have gotten a lot worse. So what do you know about what the current situation is, Nick?
I don't know the exact numbers because the government is not going to give you the exact numbers right now. But I've heard from a few of my colleagues in Iran that it will go above 70,000. We'll have more than 70,000 deaths, and some believe it would possibly reach 100,000 this year.
Wow.
It's mostly an assessment. I'm not sure if it's going to reach that number or not. But the fact is that Iranian governments, through time after the revolution, have done absolutely nothing enough to somehow contain the pollution. from 2002 to 2003, before I left Iran, I was part of a news agency, an environmental news agency, and we were focused on air pollution and optimization of different types of fuel for automobiles in Iran. So we were hoping that by raising awareness, the people would possibly uh, hold government officials accountable for their wrongdoings or actually doing nothing for them. The problem is because of corruption, they didn't stop the production of very lousy automobiles like Paycon for a long time. And Paycon, that's actually Hillman, uh, the technology was from the 1960s, but they were still producing it in 2001 and 2002. And many people in Tehran, we believe, died because of the pollution caused by these automobiles. And the other thing is that in some industrial towns like Iraq, and right now in Ardakan in the Yaz province, uh, well-connected people have been behind creating big factories that actually are using the worst fuel possible. They call it, I don't know what's the translation of it in English, mazot. I don't know.
It's the
It's
same.
something like a diesel fuel, but much worse. And this is something really, really bad for any human being living near that factory. And because of lack of environmental justice in Iran, and it's something, when you talk about it, it's something luxurious for so many people. Oh, environmental justice. We're not
Right,
like the
right.
people in Switzerland to have such a thing. But the fact is, we have to fight for environmental justice in Iran,
But
and we are not.
do we know what the pollution level, the air pollution level in Iran, I'm just particularly in the urban centers, is in contradistinction to other places in the world?
Uh,
They
some
we
of some of Iranian cities are the most polluted cities in the
in the
world.
world.
Days, a few days per year. Tehran has been one. Iraq has been one. And the bad thing is that so many people who have lived in Tehran have got used to it. And when they, let's say, travel to somewhere really healthy with clean air, they start having headaches.
Right,
This has happened to
right, right,
people I know, actually.
right, right. Hang on, let me bring Pega in. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, well, you were mentioning cities. Actually, we're regularly ranked among the worst in the world, and the main cities in Iran that are at the top of those rankings are Shiraz, Isfahan, Ahvaz, Tehran, Mashhad, and Tabriz.
The big cities.
The big
basically,
cities. And actually, Nikahang was mentioning automobiles and cars. Tehran specifically, 70 to 80% of the air pollution is relevant to the transportation sector. So automobiles, buses, things like that. And the thing is, there's been this emergency committee for air pollution that's been created over the last years. I don't know exactly what year it started, but frankly, like Nikahang mentioned, they've done absolutely nothing despite knowing this. And I think that a lot of it goes back to exactly that, is the corruption that we see.
So, Nick, just on this, one thing that I have heard about that I know you were going to say something about is that there has been some activity inside Iran of people protesting against this, people raising their voices against the air pollution issue. So maybe it isn't such an elite issue that people don't have time for in Iran. Can you tell us about the protest movement?
Yes, we had a number of protests in Ardakan, and Ardakan is the city of former President Khatami. And there was a foundation in the province of Yazd that the Khatami family gained a lot of money through that, and they were the ones who established a lot of these industrial centers over there. So part of the thing is because of this well-connected family, they were able to get lots of money to uh, create all these businesses for themselves, and the people are going to pay for it. That's part of the environmental injustice that actually is happening.
Mm.
Some gain, but many lose. But in Iraq, that you have lots of plants over there, lots of factories. Pollution has been a major problem for the people over there, but it worsened, and people went to the streets. And some of those people I've spoken with are fighting for their children for the future of their children, and they understand the grave danger that's threatening the livelihood of the city. And Pegah mentioned Shiraz. Yes, we've had lots of problems in Shiraz as well. I'm from Shiraz originally, and we had this major cement factory in southwestern Shiraz, and the wind just used to blow all the dust towards the city, and many people got sick because of these very tiny particles. And we're going to have a lot of problems because of the Lake Urumia problem that we've had all these years. It's been mostly dry, and also the wetlands that have dried up, like Gulf Khuni near Isfahan or others. And people are going to pay a high price for the mismanagement of water resources by
Right.
this government. So water is also a factor over here.
Thank you, Nikahang. It's always
My pleasure.
elucidating and interesting to hear you on these topics. I really appreciate it and hope to see you soon. Be safe and hold on to your bicycles.
I'll do it. Thank you.
See you, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Nikahang Kowsar in Washington, D.C. This air pollution thing is it's interesting to have the statistics to go with it, to know that it's not just something that they're complaining about, people in Iran, or just but that in fact Iran is one of the worst places in the world, as you say, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think, Nikahang mentioned mazout. I think that's the way you pronounce it. That fuel oil has been banned almost everywhere else in the world. There's no other place in the world that you'll see them using that. And it's because of the harmful effects that it has by being burned and it going into the air and things like that. And I think, people are starting to see the effects of that. And that's why we're starting to see these demonstrations and people voicing their concerns and thinking about the future, thinking about their kids and next generations, things like that.
If only clean air were part of the Islamic, as defined by the Islamic Republic agenda, it would be a good thing. Thank you, Pegah. Let's get to our featured guest. See you. I'll see you in a few minutes when the show ends, but also see you on stage.
That's right.
February 7th, Rook Live. Get your tickets. Go to our Instagram page and click on the link if you don't have them yet. They'll probably be sold out in the next day or so. We are coming to you on rookmedia.com. It's there that you can link to all of our platforms: Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, CastBox. If you want to see some visuals with Rook, switch over to our YouTube channel. We've actually started doing YouTube shorts, little videos, so go check them out. At Rook Media is our YouTube channel. And if you like your Rook descriptions and bulletins in English and in Persian, check us out on Telegram. You can support Rook you can come to our live show. You can buy our merch or become a Rook member on Patreon. You press the Support Us button on our Patreon page at rookmedia.com. Let's get to our featured guest. And my guest today is an Iranian visual artist based in New York who's known for his vibrant and captivating portraits of human beings, ranging from famous Iranians to average city dwellers. Nehdaran was born and raised in Isfahan and started working with oil paintings at the age of 9. He studied painting at the Sureh Art University in Shiraz, ended up being a popular presence in the Tehran art scene. Specializing in portraiture, Danon's artwork skillfully captures the essence of nostalgia and historical narratives, creating a seamless connection between the past and contemporary culture. About 9 years ago, Danoon relocated to New York and has since created some acclaimed and engaging art series, including Esther's Children, which explores his own Jewish heritage, and his latest works, FE26, inspired by New York itself. Danoon has been a member of the Iranian Painter Association since 2007, and his paintings have showcased around the world. And right now, Nehdaran joins me from New York City. Hello, sir.
Hi, Jian. I'm really happy to be here and talk to you after a while. We met like 2 years ago.
It's such a great pleasure to have you on the program. I'm a fan of your work, and I've been looking forward to this. So first of all, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. It's all pleasure is mine.
You've really captured the imagination of people around the world like me for your stunning portraits. And I was surprised to find out that you haven't been doing these kind of portraits forever. It was during COVID that you started doing first self-portraits, and then you began asking friends to sit for you and eventually even strangers. What is it about doing portraits of human beings that feeds your soul so much?
Actually, it's a very good question because the COVID makes us very lonely and not seeing people, and we love. I mean, I myself, I love people, and I never know that it's gonna be this much disaster to not seeing people. So, and I just paint myself 300 times, like, and it was more a study about painting a portrait through a mirror. But when the COVID gets less and less, so I could see people, and I asked just friend to sit and pose for me, and we just chat and talk and paint. So it was kind of very pleasure feeling for me, and it wasn't really serious series. I just paint one, two, three more people, more friends. And one day I counted them and I saw it's almost 100 pieces. I said, okay, I'm gonna go for more. And my goal is 365 now, and I have already painted 205.
Yeah. It's become it's kind of like it's become your thing, which again is interesting. I mean, you're not that old, but you're not a kid, and you've been this painter all your life, and what you're known for now only started 3 or 4 years ago, which is it's an amazing career arc in terms of what you're doing with these portraits. Something that really stuck out for me is that you don't it's not just about the person sitting in front of you. You talk about how you get to know your subjects, how they tell you about their childhood or their fears or their life stories. Talk to me about why that's important when you are painting portraits. How do you, if you do, use that information in terms of your creative soul?
Yeah, silent is scary. So, my couch behind me is like Sigmund Freud couch. So whenever anybody come and sit on that and pose for me, and the eye contact is kind of weird too. So we start to talk about anything. How is the weather? And people easily share their feeling, their emotion, whatever they want. And I play as a therapist, really, believe me. And even some of my model who are professor or writer, they write something very nice about this feeling that they stay away from the cell phone. They just sit and we talk. It's more interesting for me that I'm involved with the chat and talking, and my hand and my eyes are working for each other. And at the end, after like 45 minutes or 90 minutes, I'm gonna see a painting that uh, I could say I painted with my subconscious.
Yeah, this part I love with you, where you say that you paint with your subconscious. I guess what that means is you don't have a vision, a specific vision of what you're going to paint before you do it. If the person is sitting in front of you and your hands just go where they go, and that makes me think that the dialogue, if they're talking about some difficult episode in their childhood, for example, that's going to be reflected on where your hands are going on the canvas too.
Maybe, I'm not sure, but what I guess my eye and my hands are doing that is they just try to see the darkness and the lightness on the face, because I have one source of light on their face, and it's kind of Rembrandt lighting that you could see a triangle on the cheek. So I started with Renaissance lighting, like Da Vinci, that the light is above the head, but it's turned a little bit to Rembrandt. That I love both of them. If I want to choose one, of course, it's gonna be Da Vinci. But I'm telling you, just I try to paint the dark and the light. I don't see eyes as eyes. I don't see mustache or hair. I just see dark to light. Very abstraction.
Do you work at that? I mean, do you, in other words, before you start the painting and the person is sitting on your couch, do you actively try not to have a roadmap? Do you go, I don't want to, I'm just going to do what I do, or is that just naturally what happens? And
You know, our body is made of water, and water is very emotional. So definitely, if my mother says something emotional, I get emotional, and I don't know if it's I'm gonna be a filter from my eyes to my hands, you know. So what I see, I paint. What I feel, I paint. I don't know really, but I'm telling you, I just feel surprised whenever I see the painting.
so the painting that you're painting becomes a revelation for you as well.
Yes, because I don't think, I just paint. You know, it's very improvised. What's gonna happen?
It makes sense to me, Donna, when you're painting somebody that you don't know, and you've started to do that, sometimes strangers, somebody that you've recently met, or somebody that somebody else has introduced you to that you have no background on, and you're reacting to what you have there in the moment, as you just described. But how does it work with somebody that you do know, or somebody who's famous? You're friends with Ali Azimi, for example. I know we have Ali as a common friend. You already know he's a rock musician, you know his background. So if he sits there, you're not coming to it with a blank canvas, if you will. Does that affect what the painting is going to be?
Actually, before I met them, if they are famous, I have kind of excited, you know, or I have kind of a stress because he's or she's kind of famous. But whenever I sit behind my easel, doesn't matter who's sitting on my couch. I worry about how can I capture and paint this much beauty. It's happened that I thought I'm not a good painter. I cannot capture this beauty. But for famous or other people, I mean, it's now difficult. How can I explain the beauty? To me, all the people are beauty. There is no difference between 90 years old woman and I don't know a, a young man or woman. I mean, there is no difference to me. I just paint what I paint.
But I mean, speaking of painting beauty, one of your first very well-known series was called My Mona Lisa, where you sort of do your version or your interpretation to a certain extent of Mona Lisa. Where does that fit into what you're saying?
Yeah, first of all, Mona Lisa is one of the most beautiful face portrait feature, whatever you can call, to me, because in my world, because first of all, Da Vinci painted. Da Vinci is one of the most genius human we ever had. He painted very emotional. He didn't paint like Michelangelo, that he paint like machine, you know. He paint very emotional, the lighting, the smile, the face, whatever he painted, to me, it's so emotional. So I really wanted to have this Mona Lisa for myself. So I just start painting her once and twice and third times. And at the end, I guess I painted her portrait 100 times. And still, if I get bored one day, if I didn't know what to paint, I'm gonna paint Mona Lisa again.
Because your portraits are somewhat interpretive. I mean, they're somewhat abstract. You're not trying to create a photograph of the person. You're creating something that, as you say, is emotional, that is moving, that is a reaction to what you're feeling in front of you. Have you, what happens? I mean, this is perhaps a delicate or strange thing to say, but how concerned are you that the person who's sitting for you likes it? I mean, people have interesting reactions to images of themselves, especially if it's not a more interpretive image.
Actually, it's happened too that usually women don't like the portrait.
And what do you do?
I do nothing. What can I do?
Okay, it's true. What can you do?
But I should say before finishing this story that this project is about how race, gender, and age are beautiful next to each other, and all 365 portraits gonna be all on one wall as one piece.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day.
Yeah.
So forget about whatever I said about beauty, really, because I guess human is beautiful.
Well, it's very democratizing of every step of it. From what you're explaining, as you say, it doesn't matter if the person's famous or not famous or whatever. Everything's sort of equal on the canvas in front of you. And yes, I can see. I mean, even if people go to your Instagram and they can see these portraits, everybody is equal. There's and unique and beautiful. It's
unique, right?
Yes.
Everybody is unique. No, even twins are unique. Each of them.
You know, one of your recent paintings and posts, actually, just very recent, is of an Orthodox Jewish man, and you've captioned it "Happy Hanukkah." And you are Jewish, and a few years ago you decided to explore your own history and background through this captivating series called Esther's Children. I know you were inspired by the Human Sarshar book of the same name. Why was it important, Donna, for you to preserve images of your Jewish heritage in your paintings?
Because I grew up in Iran, in Isfahan, as a Jewish, and so we know that we are minority, you know. And when my brother was studying about the Jewish signs symbol when he was finishing the university, he brought Human Sarshar book home, and I just fell in love with the book and how Human explain our feeling that when we go to school we should not say we are Jewish, you know, we should always hide anyway. But I try to unhide this feeling and show the world that we have history in Iran. We live with other religion in Iran for years, and we love each other. We have usually no problem, thank God. My parents still lives in Iran, in Isfahan, and I had a show in Shirin Gallery 2012, I guess, 12. And Shirin Partwi is a lovely woman. She was kind of worried that what's going to happen if they come and close the gallery. And I said, look, in Iran, they publish Human Sarshar books without even tell him. They translate the book and they publish, and they are selling the book, and there is no problem. And thankfully it wasn't no problem. And after that, Rira Gallery in Dubai was interested with this show, and I had another solo show in Dubai 2013, God, 10 years ago, and sold out. The exhibition sold out. So it was very interesting series for me because I'm one of those people, and I painted my people. And I should tell you, most of people who bought this painting are not Jewish.
How did Iranians in general react to it, if not the regime?
I guess it was in Iran was mostly about beauty of those pictures, nothing else.
The exploration of identity is not a new subject for you, and I wonder how clear you are with your sense of your own identity. I mean, how you self identify. Jewish, Iranian, American, New Yorker, Isfahani. What if somebody says, how do you identify? What do you say?
I like this question actually, Jian Jun. So of course I'm Jewish. It's religion. Of course I'm Iranian and I'm from Isfahan. It's nationality. If New Yorker accept me as a New Yorker, but I think I'm New Yorker too. So Iranian, Jew, New Yorkers. Sounds good.
In Esther's Children, you do a series of renderings of old photographs of Jewish families, and then you include portraits of yourself in them as well. And I was thinking, I mean, it's an interesting meditation, sort of thinking, well, why would Donna do this? Is it a way of demonstrating a continuum in your heritage? Is that the idea?
Exactly, right. And I wanted to say I'm one of you.
I almost can't not ask this. We're living in a moment where headlines are preoccupied by rise in anti-Semitism around the world. There's conflicts all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but certainly at the forefront of demonstrations, etc., around Judaism and Islam and the Middle East. Are you finding it's harder to be Jewish given the events in the world right now?
I like other people. I hate war, and I pray for peace. I don't know how they cannot make a peace.
Is it weird that you come from Iran, where famously, I mean, we've had people on the show like Homa Sarshar, who talks about being Jewish in Tehran in 1978 and having to leave because at that moment the Islamists were, threatening her and her family, etc. Is it weird to have that backdrop, but to be in a place like America right now where there's this divide happening in America?
I don't know what should I say, but hopefully human can accept each other, and I prefer to not say anything. I don't know, because I don't have the knowledge about this. What can I say,
I got you.
Yeah.
You were born and raised in Isfahan. Tell me about your grandfather.
So I never met him because whenever he died, I was born in his first anniversary of his pass away. And so, of course, they put his name on me, Rahmatullah. But they never called me Rahmatullah. They always called me Donna because all my siblings' names start with D. So my mother come to school and asked the teacher, call Donna. And I said, you don't know, I'm here. My name is Rahmatullah here. And she always forgot whatever she named me. Anyway, my grandfather was very good at jewelry and antique, and he was kind of famous for that. I remember we had lots of very great antique in grandparents' house. And my uncle, my mother's brother, he painted lots of painting with oil on canvas. And I remember the first time that I found his box, my mother saw the shine in my eyes, and she said, if you are interested, I can take you to an art class. And I remember I was in heaven when I went to art class when I was 9, and I could use the oil on canvas. It was the most interesting thing. Even when I talk about that, I got goosebumps. I cannot explain that feeling that I could paint. Even before then, I remember that I was very good at sketching, even I sketch in my mind if I didn't have a pen. I guess maybe we can call it talent. It's talent and passion, and then caring about those feelings.
What were the first things that you painted when you were 9? Do you remember?
Yeah, my teacher just told me make 2/3 of the canvas just blue, and he gave me a braveness to do that, and then he teach me how to paint some trees and a house. Like it was. Yeah, I remember that painting very, very well.
Let me get your opinion on creativity, art and creativity in Iranians, because despite the incredible wealth of art and creativity and certainly poetry, etc., that we can see throughout the centuries coming from Persia, Iran, etc., there is this. I can't tell you the number of people who've even come on this program who've said that they were directed by their parents to go into becoming an engineer or a doctor, and this sort of conversation we always have around how arts is not valued in the same way in Iran as it might be in other places in the world. And it feels like there's all this creative potential that sometimes is not met in Iran because people are streamed away from being artists or being artistic. It sounds like you grew up in a very arts-friendly family. Do you think that that's half of what made you a great painter? In other words, the fortune of having people around you like your mother who encouraged it?
Of course. My mother told me I've seen many doctors who graduate from medicine, and they never met any people. They just start to paint. And if you love to paint, just do whatever you love. And I remember my father said, if you want to paint, buy a good material. Don't paint with cheap material. And I always had their encouragement. It's so cliche, but I should say thank you to both of them.
It's wonderful. I mean, you're lucky to have those parents. I mean, your brother is artistic as well, as a photographer.
Yeah, exactly. My brother studied painting, but he never used paint. He used camera. He find a better, maybe material to capture his idea. But he's so good. Actually, his pieces is in LACMA Museum, in Detroit Museum. He got lots of prize for Nikon photo contest and other thing. He's I guess he's way better than me.
Well, you've been quite modest in this interview when you say, I don't know, maybe it was talent, etc. You do know. I mean, you should know how good you are, and you've been celebrated, you've been exhibited around the world. When did you know, or when did people around you know that you were good, that you have this?
People say you don't try to paint, you just paint, and in university also we have good teacher so they give me good marks. I don't know why. So probably I was good, and that it's our culture. We cannot say I'm good. We cannot say that.
Well, there seem to be some people who are very adept at saying that in our culture as well. That I am the best, I'm good. But you are apparently Tarofi, and you're not gonna you're not gonna be Roqe enough to tell us that you're very good. But I appreciate that modesty. You do study in Shiraz, and then you end up for 10 years in Tehran before coming to America. Talk to me about that time. I mean, under the current regime, we get used to hearing that there's not much respect and support for given to artists. You were in Tehran right after that sort of period of hope and reform, Khatami. How would you describe Tehran and the art scene in those post-Khatami years when you were doing a fair number of exhibits?
I remember that whenever Mousavi was candidate for the president, we had an exhibition with him in a huge gallery in Tehran, and it was very interesting that our future president can paint, And I remember his painting that it was still life, some apple, and it was good. I'm not good at politics at all. I don't know what should I say between.
Was it a thriving scene? Did you feel like, I mean, is it, even today, of what you know of the Tehran art scene, is it something that you wish would have more oxygen, or do you feel like there's a lot going on there? I'm just asking you to tell me what you feel like it's like.
I guess the art scene in Iran, in Tehran, is so good. I should say that in New York is the best, but it's too much. You cannot follow Metropolitan Museum, you cannot, and Chelsea galleries and Tribeca galleries, Brooklyn galleries, or MoMA Museum. You cannot follow all of them, but in Iran, because it's in Tehran, because everything is smaller, you can do all of them and you enjoy. But here, I just skip. I just said I cannot make that. I cannot did that. I stopped. One day you decided to not go there.
Interesting.
Well, to me, I should tell you that I love New York. I love New York, but Tehran is something else.
Well, you said that you when you came to America, this would be 8 or 9 years ago now, you only anticipated doing so for a year. You were just come to basically visit for an extended period, but then you ended up staying. Why did you stay?
One of the reasons was green card, because I got the green card that they said if you want to keep it, you should stay in America. And so you can be out of America for 4 months. So I visited my family for 4 months. I had the exhibition, I back to Tehran, had the exhibition. But at the end, I was in New York, and so COVID happened, and instead of 5 years, it's happened for 7 years, and I got my citizenship, and now, I don't know, everybody in Tehran tell me, nobody stay, everybody's moving, nobody stay. Yeah. Why you want to come back? And I should tell you, with that imagination of 9 years ago, I still want to back to Tehran.
But that's interesting. So you think you might return to Iran?
Who knows? Maybe someday.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because your latest works are not just related to New York, something of a testament to New York City, which is what I think of you as a New Yorker, because it's when I met you the first time at your, in New York, where you live and hang out. One of your latest projects is FE26. It's inspired by New York. It's much more abstract than your portraits and your other paintings. Tell us about it. I'm not even sure how to put it into words. Maybe you can.
Yeah, FE26 is a number of iron in periodic table, the Mendeleev table. And I should tell you before then, I started this project in first year I live in New York City. So I was really inspired with the city, and I took the train and I could see the construction of New York City, how they built, It's a very interesting city that they built with huge column of iron, and they hide with stone, with tile, lots of material. But at the end, they rust because it's humid here, and they come out of all those cover. Cover could be tile, cement, you see on the step that some part is broken, the rust moved down, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I was thinking that how the material can talk to you. And it was, to me, like we have feeling that we try to hide, but we are not successful.
You're such an interesting guy. I mean, between what you've just said about the columns of buildings and the people sitting on your couch, I mean, they say great artists, it's about what they see, when they look at something. But you clearly see, like you see emotions, you see energy in a way that I feel like most of us maybe don't.
So this is actually my job to see. That's my job. I see many things. If you walk with me in the street, I'm gonna show you many things that people never see.
But clearly, we're talking about iron in buildings. I mean, clearly you see things that other people don't see. At the same time, I feel like, is that true of all? I mean, I feel like somebody might say, well, paint this apple, and somebody would see an apple and sort of paint it, very almost mathematically. Whereas with you, I'm sure I'm not going to see the same apple that would be painted by Mousavi.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as we talk, everybody is unique and everybody has this different eye to the world. But as my job to see and capture and maybe paint, I could see definitely more than people.
It's such a great pleasure to get to talk to you and to do this. I've been looking forward to it. A final question for you, but perhaps kind of a very almost juvenile one. But I mean, this idea of the portraits, back to where we started, and the 100 or the over 200 you've done now, and you're looking to do more. Who's on your list for somebody you would really like?
It's you, actually.
Anytime, man. I'm right here. I'm available. I'll come and sit on the couch, of course. I mean, I don't know if you can fit my nose on the canvas, but you'll have to try. That's very kind of you. Who else is on your list?
I prefer to not mention, because believe it or not, some people come after 2 years emailing, and they have no time, but at the end they stopped. So I'm not gonna name them, but there are many interesting like yourself in my list, and I gonna finish 365 one day.
Well, I gotta come to New York and get painted by you before you finish, because it would be an honor. I would love to.
My honor, really.
Donna, it's been a great pleasure. I thank you. I appreciate you, and I hope we do it again. And I look forward to seeing you in person.
No, really, please, let's do it again, because you find something in our conversation that I never see. The same as my job, I could see, and you can listen, and you can talk, and you can discover many things in our conversation. So, looking forward to see you again, talk again, and yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
One more time to know each other. Thank you again.
Thank you. Khodafis.
Khodafis.
Danoon. Nehdaran. Joining me from New York City. Great to have him on the program. This is Full Time for Rook for today. Remember, for all things Rook related, you can go to our website, rookmedia.com. Everything is there. All of our previous episodes, guests, programming, it's all there, rookmedia.com. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together each week. Savvy Roham, Talented Anahita, Super Parisa, Smart Pegah, Bearded Omid, Methodical Kaveh, Resonant Raha. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Gomeshi. Find Rook on Instagram at Rook Media. And in the meantime, as ever, Mizun Bashin.